Judge-elect Andrew Santoli. How you doing, sir?
Good morning, Matthew. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Look, I want to say before we get started, congratulations on becoming a judge or a prosecutor before you won the election. It was a hard election. I saw you out there shaking hands, kissing babies, promoting, and everything. Like everything you need to do to win, you did it. And I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It's still sinking in that I won the election. I don't think it'll really hit me for sure until January when I take office. But yeah, it was a lot of hard work. I'm glad to see it pay off. But first thing I'll say is no elections won by yourself. I had a great team behind me. My wife, my son helped me out on a couple days. My family, friends, uh, a lot of people were pulling for me. So it was definitely a group effort, and I can't wait to take office on January 6th.
That's awesome, man. Well, again, congratulations. But how did you get to this point? Like, I just let me know, who are you? Where did you
Yeah.
decide that I'm going to be a lawyer? I'm going to be a judge? And how did that get formed? Like in your history, did you just like wake up one morning as a kindergartner and said, "I'm going to be a lawyer"? Like, how did that process, come out until you are the person you are today?
So for me, I always wanted to be a lawyer since I was younger.
So
It
basically,
really,
yes, you're a
yeah.
kindergartner and said, "I want to be a lawyer."
Maybe not that early, but in eighth grade we read To Kill a Mockingbird for the first time, and struck me about Atticus, and it was when I read that book for the first time, To Kill a Mockingbird, is when I really realized that I wanted to be an attorney, wanted to be a lawyer. And I shadowed an attorney for a project in high school. I always knew in college that I wanted to eventually go to law school, and it's kind of changed throughout my educational period of what type of lawyer I wanted to be. Initially, when I was in law school, I thought I was going to be some sort of business transactional attorney. I did not know I was going to go into criminal law at all. I actually got a dual degree, an MBA, when I was in law school. I thought I was going to do transactional work, business work, and I kind of just fell into doing criminal law at the prosecutor's office. I actually only took one criminal law class while I was in law school. So,
Hmm.
um, even though I've wanted to be a lawyer pretty much my entire life, the type of law I wanted to do, being a prosecutor, being a judge now or judge elect now, that didn't really materialize until later in life. But it was a path I always wanted to take. Um, that started in grade and middle school.
So, how did that shape or form? You said, you didn't know what kind of law you want to practice. You knew you wanted to stand up there. You probably saw the Perry Mason stand in front of the court, do the trials and everything, which is pretty glamorous and sexy. But when did you make that switch? When did you say, no, be a prosecutor? This is what I want to do. This is where my passion lies. Or did you not have the passion until you were a prosecutor?
The passion definitely developed after I was a prosecutor. So when I graduated from law school and passed the bar exam, it was 2006. The market for attorneys was a little bit on the downside, and I had trouble finding a job out of law school, like many recent law graduates do. And I was working for uh, this temp agency that was hiring law students. I just graduated. They're waiting for the bar exam, doing some independent contractual work, document review work. And I had actually a close friend of mine who worked for the prosecutor's office. We went to law school together, good friend of mine, and he loved the job. He absolutely loved it. I had met some other people that were prosecutors. They loved the job, and they were hiring. And so I just sent my resume in. They kind of vouched for me that I had the tools to be possibly a good prosecutor, a good litigator. I interviewed and I was hired. And once I was hired with the prosecutor's office and became a prosecutor involved in representing the public and being a public servant, I really did fall in love with that aspect of the job, trying to make trying to bring justice to individuals that have suffered, tragedy in their life.
You said that your friend loved the job. What when you were talking to your friend about loving the job and made you, throw on your resume for the job? What did he say? What did he try to express to you that grabbed you and go, yeah, I guess I'll apply for this? Or was he like, hey man, you see my paycheck?
It was the paycheck. I can tell you that. It was definitely not the paycheck. Um, Back then, we did not. When I first started with the office, we were not. We were compensated fairly. I wouldn't say we were well compensated by any means. It was just a little bit of everything. He loved being a public servant. He talked about helping people out in the community, helping the community. He talked about the camaraderie in the office. A very team aspect, and something that I always valued. There's also an aspect of litigating and wanting to win and standing up in the courtroom and fighting for what's right. There's a certain athletic aspect to it. If you're a former athlete, former a person who plays sports, you kind of understand of being in that arena, being in the courtroom, and advocating for your side or advocating for your position and wanting to win. There was a lot of when I was first hired by Bill Mason, he wanted to hire a lot of former athletes. I played sports growing up. I played rugby in college. My buddy was a college baseball player. A lot of people I started with were former athletes. And I think because Bill really highlighted that sort of temperament that, a lot of times you're going to be up there, you're going to be challenged, you're going to have to want the ball when the game's on the line. So it was that aspect of the job that really kind of got me going in the morning when I first started.
This is one of those meta questions that I think you just maybe think of right now is it's how much of these little hobbies or different aspects of your life kind of compounded to get the discipline that you needed to do on a joint MBA JD plus, be a prosecutor plus run for office. Like you said, sports, you need discipline to do this, to get up in the morning, to practice, to work out, to, be tired all the damn time, plus still do your job, plus, talk to your teammates and have that camaraderie. How much do you think these extracurriculars and hobbies that you had in your life, and what were they, led you to achieve what you have achieved?
I think it's an incredibly important aspect of my life. If you have the discipline, you like to work hard, those types of personality traits will open up a lot of doors for you. And I played sports growing up. When I was a little kid, I had a ball in my hand, you name it, playing baseball, football, basketball, soccer, I golfed. And then when I went to college, I played rugby. I was, captain of my team. I was president of the rugby club. So I had to
Oh, you're one of
run.
those guys. Okay.
Yeah, I had to run the organization. I still say my greatest feat was being able to get 40 college kids at the rugby pitch at 8 a.m. to travel 3 or 4 hours to an away game, be it in Columbus or Bowling Green or Dayton. Before cell phones, no text messaging. Some people knew how to use email. The fact that we were able to organize that and show up to a match with a team is I look back and I'm like, I don't know how we were ever able to accomplish that feat. So, I just had those organizational skills and leadership skills and work ethic that I think has got me to this point in my life.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. I was just driving down the road the other day trying to find, a different place, that I usually never go to. And I had it on my Google Maps and I had no clue how I would do this before with a Rand McNally. I had no clue how we found places back in the day or asked directions to people's houses. I guess what my question for that last one are those skills nature or nurture? Do you think that they're innate to you, or is it something that you learned? Is it something that people can learn? Hard work, discipline, the ability to keep going, to organize, to lead?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think some people are born with that type A personality, and then some people can be taught it as well. Certainly people can understand the need for organizational skills and discipline, but you've met people in your life, they're just type A. From the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, they're go 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 go. And that's how I am. I can't sit still. I just can't sit still. And it was nothing I was ever taught. My mom's the same way, so I'm sure I got it from her. I just cannot sit still. So it's just that go, go, go attitude, I think, that has helped me throughout my life.
That's called ADD, sir. No.
I think it's type A. I think type A is better.
Going back to being a prosecutor, how long were you a prosecutor?
So almost 14 years. I started in early 2007, and I left in January of 2020.
Okay. A little backstory for whoever is listening. The way that I first met you was 6 years ago with my sister's case. My sister was murdered on the west side of Cleveland, and you were the prosecutor in that case. One thing that I really respected about the job that you've done or you did with that case was that you gave us your personal cell phone number. You were always able to or ready to respond to a text, respond to an email, pick up a call, answer questions that we might have. And you said any hour of the day. And sometimes we took you up on it. Like, hey, man, what's going on? We haven't heard anything. Can you explain? Can we know about the details? And you were always very open, transparent, and accommodating to our family, especially through a hard time, and we really appreciate that. What are some cases that stick out to you as a prosecutor that just were really emotionally hard for you, where you just went, I just can't believe this. I maybe made you want to quit.
Nothing that made me want to quit. I mean, I did love being a prosecutor, and the way I treated you and your family is the way I try to treat all the families of all the cases I prosecuted. I was a member of the major trial unit, so I handled homicide cases, sexual assault cases, and unfortunately, a lot of individuals that suffer a death in their family at the hands of another individual or a sexual assault, they tend to be people that come from disadvantaged communities, in our county. And some of those individuals don't always believe that the criminal justice system is there to work for them.
Mm,
And for their experience in their case, I was always going to be the face of the criminal justice system. So I always took it at the heart to make sure that, listen, I can't promise you an outcome, but I can promise you I will give you all of my effort. And I will do everything I can to make sure justice is done. And I will be accessible to you. And I will keep you informed of what is going on with the case, because I want you to come away with this knowing that the criminal justice system does work and it can work, and I'm gonna do everything I can. That there's been a lot of cases in my career that have stayed with me. Obviously, the hardest cases as a group that I prosecuted were cases where children were sexually assaulted. Those cases
mm,
were just very difficult. Talking to a 5, 6, 8-year-old, 10-year-old about being sexually assaulted is a conversation I never wanted to have. I didn't like having. I don't want to have to have again. Those are severely difficult cases when you're prepping a child to go on the witness stand to talk about what was done to them. Those are really difficult cases. And in the back of your mind, you never know what's actually going to happen in trial. You could have a conversation with a child and they could be ready to talk about what happened to them, but you walk into that courtroom and there's a judge and there's a jury and there's a defense attorney, and I never knew what the child was going to say when they took the witness stand. So you have that that feeling in the pit of your stomach, like if they're not able to describe what happened to them, this person might get away with what happened. And so those were very stressful cases. um, Obviously your sister's case will be something that I never forget. I also handled the Aliana DeFreeze case where the young lady, she was going to school, she was kidnapped, raped, and murdered. And what was done to her was unimaginable. And so those are some mental images that I'll never forget the rest of
mm.
my life. There's just a lot of cases that are stressful, and they have a lot of tragedy involved with them. And it's hard being a prosecutor. Like, it's hard being a law enforcement individual and having to see some of that stuff. I really feel for first responders when they're subject to that type of trauma and they have to see it on a day in basis. So those are things that'll stick with me the rest of my career.
Mm. I really didn't know what to expect when I asked that question, and I'm really happy that you were very honest and open about that. I couldn't imagine. I bet that it seems like a work that you have to have passion to do that work. You have to know that you are working for the greater good, to keep subjecting yourself to images and stories and tears of families in Cuyahoga County. And sometimes I bet, just like we did, we just walk up on each other and just go, "Oh, there's that person again," and I really feel for them. And you always have to keep reliving that trauma yourself. So, you know, I don't know how to say it, but I respect the work that you've done. But moving over to running for a judge, you did this work for 14 years. I think the judge for my sister's case was Judge O'Donnell, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
He just ran
John.
for Supreme Court. He did not win, but hopefully he runs again, and we see him again. But what was your decision to run for judge? What's your goals to become a judge opposed to a prosecutor, which obviously you're doing good work?
So it's not like it happened overnight. It was, you know, I'd always been kind of involved in politics. Always wanted to be a public servant once I got into the prosecutor's office and had seen the type of work we've done. I had the opportunity to help some friends who ran for office. I had friends that ran for city council or their local school board, other friends that ran for judge, and see what kind of get a flavor for what it took to run for office. And it's something that developed over time. I thought, what, this is something that, I think I can do, and I want to do. And I think there's a greater impact I can have in the community. As one of our 34 common police judges, you know, I might be able to be a person in that room that makes policy decisions, that is able to bring our court system into the 21st century. I think we've made some great improvements the last 10 to 15 years, but I think there's still some improvements to be made as a judge, and I'm looking forward to making those improvements. As you're well aware, Matthew, I mean, there's bail reform is a current issue. We've got some issues with sentencing and needing to compile sentencing data. And there's some other issues where they're talking about building a new justice center or rehabbing the current justice center and building a new jail. And how we make these decisions and what we decide is really going to kind of crystallize how we deliver justice and criminal justice for the next 50 to 75 years. I mean, if you think about it, they made a decision to build a new justice center in the late 1960s. It was built. It's been in operation since 1974. And you see the current problems we're having with the justice center and jail. And so if we don't do this right, we could be reliving the same problems we're engaged in right now. So I'm hopeful that, we are taking a best practices approach and using the data necessary to make sure that that new jail that we build and these bail reform efforts take place.
I want to get into the policy in just a
Yeah.
minute, but I also want to say, I want to ask you the question of you saw this as a prosecutor, and you saw these problems as a prosecutor. Why is being a judge a way to attack these problems? What power do you have, or what influence do you have to try to work on these policies opposed to the power you had as a prosecutor?
Yeah. So as a prosecutor, I was pretty much limited to the cases assigned to me. And I was one of,
Got it.
even though I was in the major trial unit, I was one of the 10 to 14 prosecutors handling the most important cases. I really was only able to handle, my small segment of cases. On any given year, I was handling anywhere between 25 to 35 cases a year. And my goal in handling those cases was I think limited to making sure that I'm doing the best job I can and making sure justice is done. Where I think as a judge or a judge elect, you've got a bigger pulpit to speak on issues that affect the justice system, the criminal justice system, how we handle civil cases. So I definitely think there's the broader audience. And I think, getting involved in those committees with the other judges, you can affect some real change and some real efforts. So I just think your impact is greater when you're an elected official. You're telling the voters what you plan on doing. You're hoping that they select you to go forward and make improvements, and then you're held to it. You're held to it, and you say, listen, over the last 6 years, this is what I've tried to do. I hope you retain me or reelect me,
Mhm.
and we're going to try to move forward. So the audience and the impact is greater as an elected official, as a judge, as opposed to being a member of a specific office.
Understood. Understood. I want to go back to that Justice Center and what you said. You said that the current problem with the Justice Center and jail. Can you give us a little bit of background and history? I know you told us when it was built and, when people started, living in the jail. um, Probably bad way to put it, but or being in the jail or being put in the jail. Is at 1974. Can you give us a little bit of more background of what are the problems with that? Why would we need a new one? And what are the problems with creating a new one? And what do you want to see in the new Justice Center or jail?
Yeah, I think it's been written about. I mean, obviously, we've had a lot of individuals that have lost their life in the jail, and they continue to do so. And it's frustrating that the jail seems to be overcrowded and just not up to today's standards. There was a recent report that it's just inhumane, the county jail. So if you're unfamiliar with the county jail, it's a structure in downtown Cleveland. It's built up and not out. Um, no one who is incarcerated in the county jail has access to outdoors. They're basically inside 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the structure itself is antiquated. The way that we house individuals is antiquated. And so I think there is going to be this push to build a new jail that's on some acreage of land that has some accessibility to outdoor space, that contains some sort of diversion center that contains some sort of centralized booking, so that we're really only housing individuals that are necessary need to be housed in the county jail. You know, the jail population fluctuates. Before the pandemic, it was up in 2018, 2019, early 2020, varied from 1,800 to 2,200 individuals. We were able to get it down to under 1,000 in the first few months of the pandemic. It's risen again. The last report I saw was in September, October. It was around 1,500 to 1,600 individuals. And so how we manage our criminal dockets and who we're incarcerating pretrial will dictate how large of a jail we need. If we are incarcerating 2,200 people, either be it by jail sentences or they can't make bond, so they're held pretrial wise. That's a much bigger structure you have to build as opposed to a structure that's built to house 12, 13, or 1,400 people. And what that does, bail reform, specialized dockets, budget, the new jail, those are all hand in hand. If you're able to get forth bail reform, meaningful bail reform that reduces our jail population, then you can build a smaller jail. You build a smaller jail, it costs less. It costs less to operate. You have more money to put in other resources, being it specialized dockets, drug treatment, mental health counseling, job training, job placement. So those three issues are all interwoven with each other. So you can't just look at the bail issue, just look at the justice center and jail issue, and just look at the specialized dockets and budget issue. If you're able to act on one, it affects the other too. And so, do I know what the right number is for the county jail? I do not, but I do know it's less than 2,000, and we've got to get there. And I think it's been shown that if we can get this diversion center up and running, so it's diverting people from the county jail, that may make some headway into not having to incarcerate so many people before they're even found or adjudicated or found guilty. Because if somebody's found guilty or pleads guilty, that's one thing. But we're housing individuals, too many individuals, needlessly before they're even found guilty.
I want to get into bail reform, but I think that I would not be doing this conversation justice if I don't ask this question. And sometimes I have to ask
Yeah,
contrarian questions. Is you're going to have the voter, you're going to have the taxpayer that says, why would I, fund my or agree to paying taxes for a new jail? I mean, you're talking about people having outdoor time. They're criminals. That's what
yeah.
they're in for. They're in jail, and if you don't want to go to jail, don't do the crime. What do you say to that kind of way of thinking?
Well, it's a health issue and it's a safety issue. I mean, the jail isn't safe and it's just not healthy and it's just antiquated. And so we've got to put forth the best practices available to us now. The best practices in 1965 isn't the best practices in 2020. And I think we've got to learn from our mistakes and figure out how we can go about it better. And going about it better and frankly more cost effective. Studies have shown that it's cheaper to build a structure that's one or two levels as opposed to a structure that's up and down. Uh, a big issue we have in the Justice Center is moving people about during a pandemic. It's a vertical structure. You can only fit so many people during a pandemic in an elevator. And so we are trying to figure
Right.
out how we can move people up and down. If this ever happens again, we're going to want a structure that is one or two floors and covers a large land area and has some outdoor space just to move people around or clean up the area. It's just a practical consideration. It's just practicality. It's just reasonableness and practicality. And sometimes, people get lost in the weeds. That you don't want this structure going straight up in the air. Now you're having trouble moving people, and it's just a safety and health issue. When it comes
Right.
down to it, it's a safety and health issue.
Right. You said there's up to 2,200 people in the jail, and then you mentioned bail reform, and you also mentioned sentencing data and specialized dockets. I want to understand the connection between all those, but first I want to start with bail reform and understand what is it. The way that I understand it is that bail was used as a way to make ensure that people were going to come back to see the judge and not just run away, right? But now it's used as more of like a wealth-based if you don't have the money to pay bail, then you are going to stay in jail until you see the judge again, which is increasing the numbers. Am I correct? And then how would you reform that, and what do you think should be done?
Yeah, so you're correct. So initially or legally, what the reason for bail is to make sure people show up to court, right? They were recognizance of the court. So you have bail to make sure people keep coming to court. Well, what has occurred, it's disproportionately affected low-income individuals. They're not able to make bail. And so an individual who's able to make their bail is out in the community and is able to tend to their family needs, maintain a job, maintain child support, maintain child care. An individual who doesn't have the same access to funds sits in the county jail until their case is disposed of many times. And so what we found over the last few years that this disproportionately affects low-income individuals across, especially in our county. So what we need to do, what we've tried to do, is lessen that impact on low-income individuals, especially those charged with nonviolent crimes, nonviolent felonies. When we're talking about common police court, we're talking about felony crimes. So I just want to make sure your listeners are there. So the common police court, we handle felony crimes that occur in the county. So you're talking about your burglaries, your drug charges, robberies, those type of crimes. We've got and felonies can vary. You have obviously your most serious felony crimes, aggravated murder, other homicide crimes, rape charges. But then they have a structure of what's called felonies of the first degree, all the way down to felonies of the fifth degree. And felonies of fifth degree are your less serious felony crimes. And a lot of crimes that are felonies of the third degree, fourth degree, fifth degree are those that are non-violent. So we're not talking about domestic violence or things of that nature, but non-violent, could be classified as property crimes. Those individuals are the ones that are much more likely to need bail reform, so they're not staying incarcerated pending the outcome of the case. Here's what's happening. A lot of these individuals who are charged with 3 felonies of the third degree, fourth degree, fifth degree, they're sitting in the county jail while their cases is pending. And there's no reason for them to sit in jail, because the realistic outcome is they're not going to go to prison. So you have an individual who's sitting in the county jail for 60 days, up to 6 months or 9 months, and then their case is disposed of and they're let out of the jail. So if the likely outcome is that they're going to be in some sort of court program or on probation, why are these individuals getting incarcerated when they're not found guilty and while their case is pending? So I think there's a certain segment of those crimes and those individuals that we can really highlight and point at and get them out of the county jail. And that's what we need to do. Now, the problem is, if we're giving people personal bond where they're just let out of the county jail on their own and they're just kind of like promising to show up, they don't have to put up any money. We need those people actually to show up to court. I think the court has run into a problem where a lot of people granted personal bonds are just not showing up to court. So we've got to find that balance where we know people are going to show up to court when their court date is given to them, and we're not needlessly incarcerating somebody. So we got to find that balance.
That's interesting that you said that. I actually volunteered for the Metanoia Project last winter, which is helping the homeless and sheltering the homeless through the harsh Cleveland winters, and multiple people that were in this and sleeping in the church over there on the west side was said that we were in jail and I couldn't go to work and I lost my house, I couldn't pay rent, and I had nowhere to go, so now I'm homeless and I'm trying to I'm here now. I didn't go to jail because of the crime. But now I'm here and I'm trying to get a job again so I can get back into a place to live. I mean, I'm just homeless because I couldn't pay bail.
I mean, you understand, and hopefully a lot of your listeners understand. I mean, people who are committing crimes, especially low level crime, they're really living on the margins, right? I mean, they're really living on the margins where, you get maybe you get arrested wrongfully or rightfully, Matthew, but you get arrested, let's say. You spend a weekend in the jail and you get out on Monday, Tuesday, you're going to be able to pick up where you left off, right?
Right.
A lot of people, if they're in jail for 2, 3, 4, even 10 days, that is a huge impact on their life. They may lose custody of their children, they may lose their job, they may lose their residence. I mean, so we really got to make sure we're doing what's best for the community. But then there's also individuals that maybe have drug addiction issues where maybe they need to go somewhere for a few days to make sure they're not overdosing. So you have to balance those issues as well, because the last thing you want to do is somebody who has a a serious drug problem and they're picked up with a serious drug problem, is let them right back out in the community without offering any sort of services or drug treatment. So you got to take that into account as well. We don't want to just be a revolving door where we're putting people at risk because just for money's sake. We need to balance those two issues.
And you said drug problem. There are specialized dockets, right, for people with drug problems, mental health, and things like that. Can you explain that? And can you explain why that is, if it is a good system? I don't know what your opinion on this. If that is a good system, and should we, encourage more of that or build that up?
So there's a lot of specialized dockets and specialized programs within the Common Police Court in Cuyahoga County. And I don't think a lot of individuals even aware of the programs that the court offers. We have a specialized drug court that deals specifically with individuals with drug addiction problems. We
Hmm.
have mental health dockets that if an individual is who's charged with a crime has some sort of mental health issue, they can be handled by a specialized mental health judge and mental health docket that has access to programs specially designed for mental health individuals. We have a veterans docket for those veterans who unfortunately have been charged with a crime. We have mentors that work with those veterans to really make sure it's getting them through the crime charge and give them access to what they need. We also have programs for first-time offenders, such as intervention in lieu of conviction, where you're really able to um, avoid getting a conviction if you follow through with some treatment programs. So, I'm trying to break it down to layman's terms, but there's a lot of programs available to individuals charged with a crime that is put into place to make sure that they get the services that they need, whether that individual has a drug problem, has a mental health issue, is a veteran that's fallen on hard times, is a first-time offender that can either go through a diversion program or needs treatment. That there are a lot of programs available to individuals charged with crime through our common police court. I think we do a good job. I think we do a really good job of offering those programs. And with all good programs, we could always use more money to make sure we're reaching the most people possible.
A good job having those programs. And but is it a good job to get people into those courts or into those programs? I'm trying to understand, like, how do you qualify, say, for a mental health court? Who does the evaluation? Do you have to have a mental health issue prior to committing a crime? Can that be evaluated while you're in the jail? Can it be, or while you're going through trial or through the court system? How do people get into that kind of, I guess, more that compassion that the court offers?
So they either have a previously diagnosed mental health issue, mental health diagnosis, or we have a court psychiatric clinic that can diagnose and offer programs. If an individual is charged with a crime and their attorney, with speaking to them, their defense attorney says, I think my client should be at a mental health docket. They can have a mental health referral. Court psychiatric clinic will conduct an evaluation and then make a recommendation to the court whether or not that person should be placed on one of the mental health dockets.
Understood. Understood. Look, I think we could talk about policy all day long because, there's people who study it, write papers, do dissertations on each one of these subjects. But I guess just to round this off, and finish up this conversation is, what would you want the listener to know about the Cuyahoga County justice system, the courts, and that you don't think they know about now and want to come away with this from this conversation with? How do you think they should be looking with new eyes to the courts?
Well, I, I, I think they should come away with, you've got a lot of dedicated public servants, not only the elected officials, but the court staff that are trying to make a difference and trying to deliver the best justice system possible. And delivering the best justice system possible requires us to focus on best practices and kind of evaluate what we've done well in the past and what we haven't done well in the past. And I think the Common Police Court has been at the forefront of developing programs that allow it to deliver the best justice possible to the citizens of Cuyahoga. Obviously the jail has been an issue, but the court system, and I hope to be involved in those conversations once January takes place, of developing a new, better jail. The programs that we have put into place the specialized dockets. We were one of the first court systems to have a veterans court. We have a robust mental health docket, as I mentioned, drug courts. We are at the forefront of trying to put programs in place so that individuals who are charged with a crime get the help they need, so that it's not a revolving door. Obviously, you're going to have individuals that have to go to prison, right? Individuals that commit heinous crimes such as murder, rape. Those are individuals that once found guilty by a jury, or plead guilty in court, they're probably going to, they're going to have to go to prison because of the great impact those types of crimes have on the community. But there's a whole large swath of individuals who are charged with crime that just simply need help. And I think as a judge, your job is to make sure you are matching up a program to that individual so that the court system isn't a revolving door. I plan to approach my docket as trying to match up what programs I can get into an individual into to make sure that they're not continuously committing crimes in our community. Does that person have a drug problem? Does that person need mental health treatment? Does that person need some job training, job placement? What can I do as a judge? What access to information, what access to programs, what access do I have that will allow me to help this person who's in front of me?
Understood. Last question, and before I ask this last question, I want to say, Judge, thank you very much for coming on and spending some time with me and indulging me in all my questions.
Matt,
Spotify.
it was a pleasure to be here, Matthew.
Thanks, man. That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Spotify, does their yearly music roundups of and tells you what song you listen to most this year. What song did you listen to most this year?
What song did I listen to most?
I'm assuming you have Spotify.
I don't. I have Pandora. I'm sorry.
This question is not for you.
I will tell you this: my Pandora station, the Pandora station I listened to most this year was Pink Floyd.
Really?
Floyd. I go back and forth between my Pink Floyd station and my Pearl Jam station, and lately I've been on my Bob Marley station kick. So those are the three stations that I listen to the most.
All right. So you got yourself some Eddie Vedder on your headphones when you're preparing for a case. That's what it is.
I am a big fan of Pearl Jam. I am anxiously awaiting the next time they come to Cleveland.
if they can come and we could have a concert again. My Rage Against the Machine tickets got canceled because of all this, and I'm a little upset.
I can imagine. I was really looking forward to going to some concerts this summer. It's just not in the cards. It's not in the cards at all.
Judge-elect.
Matthew, I'm a little older than you, so I'm a child of the '90s grunge alternative rock scene. So it's a lot of Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, Smashing Pumpkins, Pearl Jam in my playlists.
We are the same age, my friend.
Are we?
We are 1979.
Oh, that's right. That's
yes.
right.
Yes.
Right. I thought I had you by a few years.
You do not. You do not. We have the same haircut, though. I just can't do the beard. Maybe that's what it is. I just can't get this to grow. Anyway, Judge-elect Andrew Santoli, I want to say thank you very much for coming on the Matthew Arondiemer Show, and congratulations to your win, and good luck in the future of all the hard work you're doing, and thank you for all the hard work you have done.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. Love to be on the show at some point in the future, Matthew.